Welcome to the best of the Godreports podcast. I'm your host, Sam, and I'm here today with my wife, Rebecca.
We have such an exciting and special interview. Recently, my father-in-law, journalist Mark Ellis, received a special invitation to visit the set of the popular online television series, The Chosen.
The Chosen Season 1 was released in 2019, and it is the first show of its kind in presenting the life of Jesus over multiple seasons. The episodes portray Jesus' life with believable dialogue and characters who genuine, heartfelt emotions, pain, confusion, fear, exhilaration, contentment, awe, help viewers relate these stories to their own struggles and joys.
While Mark was visiting the filming of Season 3, scheduled to be released later this year, he had the opportunity to sit down with actress Elizabeth Tabish. She plays the part of Mary Magdalene in the show. She says, "My life before and after booking The Chosen is like a completely different life. Like before and after Jesus."
Enjoy this live interview by my dad and Godreports journalist Mark Ellis with Elizabeth Tabish from on the set of The Chosen from 2022.
I had a hard time getting out of bed emotionally and physically, and slept way too much, and was barely making ends meet. And then I was doing commercial work, which is this sort of mockery of life. I'd go, show up, have this happy, healthy family and kids and a dog and drive a nice car and smile all day, and then come home and go back to bed. And that was going on for a little while. And I was self-medicating. I was drinking a lot and couldn't quite find purpose or meaning, or I felt like I was just in this loop of despair. And it's funny to talk about it now because I don't feel it at all. I'm like, that sounds, so far away and removed from life now, but that's what
Praise
it was.
God.
And I couldn't see a future. I couldn't figure out what it was going to be because I couldn't envision it. And I was a little lost. And then I got rejected one too many times from commercial stuff and jobs. I couldn't pay rent, and so I told my agent to stop submitting me. And I need to get a big girl job and start editing or do something else, crew work. Or I moved in with my mom. I couldn't get pay for my apartment anymore. And I was just ready for something new, and I did not think it was going to be the role of my dreams. He submitted me for this anyway, and when I read it, I connected to the character in such an intense way. I thought, if I don't book this, it's definitely a sign I should not be acting. But I got the call back. I met Dallas, and it felt like it was this thing that was written for me in a way that gave me a new start and new beginning, which is literally what happens to Mary. She's just this fresh start. And it was like the before and after of booking The Chosen. It was like a completely different life. I mean, we only have a little bit of information about her from the Gospels, but then all of this other speculative fiction about her in media, across the board, of if she was a prostitute or Jesus' wife, or, there's all this, I think, misinformation about her. I didn't even know she was possessed, and that Jesus expelled these demons from her. I had never heard that before, which is insane. And so when I first read the script, I was like, is this biblically accurate? And turns out, yes, or at least probable. And then, we know that, and we know that she helped finance the ministry, and then we know that she was at the first to see him resurrected. So, it's not a lot of information, but I think it speaks to the writer's, imagination, but also understanding of the Bible, of like what could have led up to these moments, and making all of those points, those facts make sense. And they've done just such this beautiful job of making her so human, and how she would have interacted with everyone and the disciples in this sort of not leadership role, but like a type of understanding that the others might not have, since she has directly been healed by Jesus. And so it's been really fun to be able to like go in depth there and flesh it out as this historical figure, but then also just as a really well-written female character, which is what I've been dreaming of for so long, that like I get to go into sides of her that are darker and more challenging, and also really, really human and gritty in a way that every actor would, love to do. I think that this type of representation has been, lacking in media in Hollywood. And I think there's plenty of stories of women with PTSD or sexual trauma or pain from their past. But they don't always show, it's usually a tragic story. They don't show this other side, which is this redemption and a new chapter and a new beginning, and a freedom from the shame and guilt and pain of the past. So I think that women watching this that have gone through that sort of trauma, or honestly, just any sort of pain in their life, they're able to see themselves in it, and also almost use the character as a vehicle to like work through maybe some of that pain in this cathartic way. I think it speaks to like how very intense and reactive the fans have been with the character, because they see themselves in it, so it's personal for them.
Thank you.
How has this project affected your own spiritual journey?
I was raised Catholic, and it was, I loved it. But then I think at some point religion and personalities within religion are almost had been distracting in a way that I almost forgot like the core of Christianity, the core of what Jesus was teaching. And I think that happens a lot to young people. And there can be this sort of cynicism that comes from that. So I kind of held on to that cynicism for a really long time into my adulthood. And, maybe saw some hypocrisy within churches where I'm like, well, I don't want anything to do with that. And because of that, felt a little isolated when I did actually need a community that believed this. So even though I maintained this belief, I didn't have a way to express it or people to communicate with about it, other than my family, So it was this isolating thing until the show. And I think because of the show, I'm able to return to the core teachings of what Jesus was actually teaching and who Jesus actually was, and not necessarily rely on the interpretation of other people for me, because then it becomes a personal thing and it becomes a very alive and real thing. But I think the show has been like this path back to it. And then also I didn't realize how many healings and how many miracles and like somehow I missed that as a kid, how expansive and just like incredible this belief system actually is. And so it's connected me deeply.
Beautiful.
I think there was one person at Liberty University that like shared the night before they were feeling suicidal, and they were so excited to be here, and that sharing the story and the character helped them. And so like these moments that are so intense and so sweet and really vulnerable are incredible to experience. But then we can't help but move on to the next person. So it's like this very intense, very sweet thing. Yeah. And then, so I want to say to anyone that's done that like, I still think about you and, hope you're doing well. And it's just hard because it is such an intense personal connection. Yeah. That we're unable to continue and unable to develop and, catch up on. So.
You had one episode that was very moving about Mary Magdalene kind of going back, reverting back. And that was one of the most powerful episodes, I thought. And what you brought to it was really exceptional. The depth of what you brought to that. Can you just speak to how you sort of prepared for that and what you thought about that whole episode?
Yeah, I was nervous for all of that. So much of season 1, I was already in that place of despair that it was very easy to connect to Lilith. And then life was good after that. And so knowing that I had to go back, I was like, do I have to go back to being depressed? Until I realized you don't have to be a method actor. You don't have to be it in order to, you just have to relate to it and have compassion for the character instead of becoming the character. In a lot of ways, I've enjoyed like having Mary as a role model in terms of growth and maturing. But for that episode, I did not want to revert to previous behaviors. Even though I was like, should I show up drunk? No, that's a bad idea. So I tried to have a little bit more removed compassion for her. But I also realized that I just need to show up, trust the writing, trust the other actors, connect to them in the present and just listen to them. And then just trust that God is going to help with this instead of me trying to control it into what I think it ought to be. And that helped immensely during season 2 of having a little bit more faith and being able to do it in the moment instead of planning for it.
It almost seemed like there was some demonic oppression that it kind of revisited Mary.
She's triggered a few times.
Yeah. So is that was on your mind that was part of it?
Yeah, I think, there's like a few things that lead up to her running away. These triggering elements that remind her of her pain in the past. And then a demonic man like coming and trying to attack her, which is maybe the biggest trigger of just like, he calls her by Lilith. It's a complete return to like a reminder of how bad things really were. At that point, she, isn't thinking clearly. Yeah. And she just needs a drink. Like she just needs what she used to cope with. Not knowing that it is such a bad idea. Because she can't even think past that need. I think people can relate to that feeling too of just when you're in that place, you think nothing else can help you because you can't see past pain. I was relating a little bit to that. I didn't want to, but I, having to return to that side of her, I definitely had to remind myself of that side of me. These characters are so human and so flawed and so deserving of love that I think a new generation growing up with this is, I think it's a lucky generation to be able to have this at that age as tools to help, in their growth.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening to this interview. If you're interested in watching the Chosen series, you can download their free app or you can go to their website called watch.angelstudios.com. Have a wonderful day.